today we're looking at Darksiders. Darksiders is an action-adventure game where you play one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. You play War, the guy with the red steed and the big fiery sword. And so the basic premise of the game is that the apocalypse of legend has happened. So you actually start the game during the apocalypse with angels and demons fighting in the street, men, women, and children running for their lives. It's like a true biblical apocalypse, not some like pseudo-atomic apocalypse. And War sort of shows up out of the blue and not sure what's going on, kind of staggering around, and you play through that sequence and it ends in a cool boss fight. And ultimately you find out that the apocalypse wasn't supposed to happen. And that's the basic premise of the game. So War is called before this council called the Charred Council, and they're blaming him for causing the apocalypse. They've stripped him of his powers. They got him like chained up, and he basically tells them to send him back to Earth so he can prove that he didn't cause this to happen. So what you're seeing here is Earth approximately 100 years after the apocalypse. It's pretty much over. All the humans are wiped out. The demons have taken over. There's a small resistance of angels still fighting, but for the most part, the war is over. Like the bad guys won. And in the game, we wanted to make an action-adventure game that had a lot of exploration. We wanted the player to really feel like they were immersed in this world. So it's not linear. Like there's a big, huge open world. This is one of the city areas in the game. There's several different districts of the city. They're all different. They're themed visually. One's like a park. One's all submerged underwater. And you're free to, as you unlock those areas, you'll get different gear in the game and different items and abilities that allows you to unlock new areas of the game. And as you get those, you gain access to these areas, and you're free to roam around and come back. And there's a lot of reward for exploration. There's our motto is that every alleyway, every little hole, every crack should have some sort of secret in it to reward the player. So if they hunt around and they find a little area off the beaten path, they're rewarded with some sort of reward. And so there's equipment-wise, there's a lot of variety in the game. The War gets a bunch of different gear. He's kind of an opportunist. I mean, he used to be a horseman, so he used to just sort of have ultimate power, and he didn't need all this stuff. But now that he's been stripped of his powers, he picks stuff up. He'll use it. This is sort of the enhancement screen, and these are kind of you can augment your weapons. You can give them like plus to damage, or you can make them light guys on fire. Some of them even have passive bonuses. So just by finding the item, you get that ability. Enemy-wise, we wanted. It's pretty cool because War's he's not on one side or the other. He doesn't work for the angels. He doesn't work for the demons. He's actually, in the fiction, the horsemen are sort of this force of neutrality to maintain balance between heaven and hell. And that's part of why, it's kind of a pride thing for him, because the apocalypse is supposed to happen in a very specific, orderly fashion, and that wasn't adhered to. So as that sort of agent of order, he wants to go back and restore the balance. And as a side effect with that, you get to interact with both sides. There's some of the NPCs you interact with are demons, some of them are angels, and you kind of get their both perspectives on what happened, and which is another important part of the game. Is even though it's a really strong action game, there's a lot of cool fighting and combos and stuff like that. We wanted to have a lot more depth, and the open world's one aspect of that. The character advancement's another. You get new armor, new weapons, and all the other stuff I mentioned. So there's a lot of like growth in the character, and then just the general interaction with NPCs and the basic story. We wanted it to have almost an RPG-ish feel. You have a sidekick in the game called the Watcher, and when you're accused and sent back to Earth, they don't really trust you, so they kind of send him along to watch after you. He's basically your warden, and it's interesting because he's there to help you. Like he'll give you hints and help you along in the story, but he's also kind of has the power to kill you. So there's a lot of interesting interactions where he'll help you out in one case, and then like in the next scene he's choking you to death, and it's an interesting dynamic between the characters, and you kind of build this hatred of him throughout the course of the game, but at the same time you need him because he's helping you out. And his voice is actually done by Mark Hamill, so it's pretty cool. Mark Hamill's awesome. He did a great job voice acting.
These ancient gates have a mind of their own. But with this, you may reach an understanding.
So he gave you your first gear item in the game. It's called the Earth Collar. And this is an example of, like, there's a big stone gate sort of guarding the entrance to this building, which is restricting you from going to other areas of the city. And it's just a good example of how you get items throughout the course. This is just like a really simple introductory example, but you get these items that allow you to, this one allows you to, like, control these big rock elementals. So now he's unlocked another part of the city, and the cool thing is the game's completely seamless. So there's no load. I mean, other than when you start the game, there's no load screens. You can You can explore around the game world, even going into the dungeons and later on in the game, and it's all load free. So it just enhances that sensation that you're in this large continuous world. But there's like 7 city areas they're about this big, and again, these are, since you don't have the horse at this point, these are a lot more, foot centric. So there's a lot of like little nooks and crannies for you to explore around to and ghost hook into and climb into. And then there's a big area that's probably equally as big, which are called the Ashlands, which I mentioned, which is a big, more open desert area for the horse to ride around on. So this whole sequence introduces one of the main NPCs in the game, which is imprisoned here. His name's Samuel, and he's actually a really powerful demon, and you have to help him throughout the course of the game because he's the only one that can get you to the tower and to the destroyer, but you're not really sure why or what his objectives are. It also demonstrates one of War's sort of like one of your ultimate powers you get later on. You wouldn't have it at this point in the game, so it's a little more overpowered in this fight, but it's his Havoc form. And the idea is that when he's a full horseman, he can do that sort of indefinitely, but since you're kind of gimped at this point in the game, you can only use it for short stints of time, but it's pretty cool. You get to turn in this big-ass red demon and just, you basically kill everything in, a couple of hits when you're in this form, so you kind of have to control and use it sparingly when you want to have the most effect. Weapon-wise, you start with the main sword. You get Death's Scythe at some point. You get this big power gauntlet that allows you to like smash through crystals and allows you to move really heavy objects. You also get Strife's gun. Strife is one of the horsemen. We kind of renamed him because we didn't want to call him Pestilence and Famine, so we named him Death, Strife, and Fury, and War, of course. So it's pretty cool. You get the pistol, you get the scythe, you get a lot of, and you can use them all. The sword's the primary weapon, which is X, and then like the scythe or the glove is the secondary weapon, which is Y, and then the gun's sort of like your tertiary weapon, which is on your right trigger. So you can combo between all 3 weapons, which is pretty cool. So he's about to release Samuel at this point.
War, are you here to play executioner? They should have sent all 4 of you.
So at this point in the game, you would have played, probably about 4 hours into the game. You would have just played through one of the first dungeons in the game called the Twilight Cathedral. And one of the key points about the dungeon experience is every time you play through a dungeon, we give you a new item. And in this item, you get the crossblade, which, in addition to just allowing you to hit stuff at a distance, which at first you don't have the gun, so you can't do that, it allows you to transfer fire and tag multiple targets. And so you have learned all that up to this point after playing through that dungeon for like 2 hours. So one thing that was really important to us with our boss fights is we didn't want it to just be run up to her and punch her in the face a million times and then she dies. So the idea of the boss fight is it's sort of, it requires you to use everything you've learned to do in that dungeon. So it will use the crossblade, it'll use transferring fire. There's also these like bomb growths that you can throw that were sort of introduced in this dungeon, and all those elements play together to allow you to defeat the boss. And you do eventually punch her in the face a bunch of times, but there's a little bit of a puzzle to defeating her. It's not just hack and slash.
Do it! Tear out her heart while she still lives. I want to hear her scream. I am one of the chosen. I can grant your every wish.
Can you restore the balance?
Wonder Samael wants this thing. It's coursing with power. You really think he's going to let you live long enough to collect on your end?